The alarm split the air like a dying banshee having a really bad day. Marine Corporal Jensen slammed her palm on the comm unit, cutting through the static. Say again, Control. Did you just say aggressive unknown species or aggressive unknown breakfast? Because honestly, both sound equally terrible right now. Unknown species, Corporal. Research Station Theta 92 is broadcasting a code red distress beacon. Heavy casualties reported. Jensen grabbed her rifle and headed for the transport. Through the screaming alarm, she could swear she heard something else in the background transmission. Something that sounded suspiciously like crying. Not human crying. Something smaller. More pathetic. She shrugged. Probably just interference. The transport dropped her at Theta 92's landing pad, which looked like someone had redecorated it with a plasma cannon and questionable artistic taste. Scorch marks everywhere. Hull breaches that would make a maintenance engineer weep. And blood. Lots of blood. But still, that crying sound. Jensen kicked open what remained of the main entrance, rifle raised, expecting to find whatever nightmare had torn through a research station full of scientists who probably couldn't operate a can opener without 3 safety briefings. Instead, she found corpses. 4 of them. Tall, scaled, built like someone had crossed a lizard with a professional wrestler. Definitely not human. Definitely very dead. And definitely not the victims here, judging by the way their claws were extended and their faces were locked in expressions that screamed predatory rage. Well, Jensen muttered, stepping over a tail that was longer than she was tall. This wasn't in the briefing. That's when she felt it. Something tugging on her boot. She looked down. A tiny scaled creature, no bigger than a house cat, was clinging to her combat gear with claws that could probably open cans but weren't particularly threatening. It looked up at her with massive eyes that were definitely leaking some kind of fluid, and made a sound that could only be described as a whimper. "Oh, come on," Jensen said. "Really?" Another whimper. This one from behind an overturned desk, then another from under some debris. Jensen lowered her rifle and crouched down. The tiny creature immediately scrambled up her arm and perched on her shoulder, still making that heartbreaking sound. "Control," she said into her comm. "We might have a situation here." "Report, Corporal." "Well, the good news is the aggressive unknown species are very dead. The bad news is—" She looked around at what appeared to be at least 6 tiny creatures emerging from various hiding spots, all making the same pitiful crying sounds. "I think I just became a babysitter." "Clarify, Corporal." "There are babies here, Control. Alien babies. And unless I missed something in basic training, I don't think they're the ones who called in the distress beacon." Static filled the comm for a long moment. Then, "Corporal, are you telling me you found alien young at a massacre site?" "That's affirmative. And they seem to think I'm their new mom, which is both touching and completely terrifying." The tiny creature on her shoulder nuzzled against her neck. Despite everything, Jensen found herself reaching up to gently scratch behind what might have been ears. "Control, I'm going to need an extraction team. And maybe someone who knows about alien childcare. Because I have a feeling this is about to get complicated." Her comm crackled to life with a new voice. Clipped. Official. The kind of voice that attended meetings where people used words like diplomatic ramifications and interspecies protocols. "Marine, this is Galactic Council Representative Morrison. Before we proceed with extraction, I need to ask you a very important question." Jensen sighed. "Go ahead, sir." "Did you engage in combat with Zephyrian military personnel?" "I'm sorry, did you say Zephyrian? As in the Zephyrian Empire? As in the guys who make the Galactic Council nervous at parties?" "Affirmative, Marine. The species you describe matches Zephyrian physiology. So I'll ask again. Did you engage in combat?" Jensen looked down at the 4 very dead aliens, then at the tiny creature now purring on her shoulder. "Well," she said slowly, "I didn't shoot anybody if that's what you're asking." "Then how did 4 Zephyrian soldiers end up dead at your location?" Jensen paused. She looked around the destroyed research station. She looked at the alien babies now gathering around her feet like the world's most dangerous kindergarten class. "You know what?" she said finally. "I think you're going to want to send that extraction team really, really fast." Why is that, Marine? Because unless I'm very much mistaken, I think these aren't the bad guys. The silence on the comm stretched long enough for Jensen to count heartbeats. Finally, the representative's voice came back, and it sounded like someone who had just realized they were standing in a minefield. Marine, are you telling me you're in possession of Zephyrian young? I'm telling you I'm standing in what looks like a nursery that got attacked, sir. And the only survivors are about the size of house cats, and currently trying to climb into my helmet. Another long pause. Marine, do you understand what this means? Jensen looked down at the tiny creatures surrounding her, their large eyes reflecting the emergency lighting. One of them had fallen asleep against her boot. Yeah, she said quietly. I think I just started a war. 20 minutes later, Jensen was seriously reconsidering her career choices. The tiny alien on her shoulder had been joined by 5 others, all of whom seemed convinced that her tactical vest was the perfect jungle gym. One had discovered the joy of dangling from her rifle strap. Another was trying to eat her comm unit. A third had somehow gotten inside her helmet and was making contented chirping sounds. Control. I need guidance here, she said, gently extracting what appeared to be a baby dragon from her ammunition pouch. What exactly constitutes neutralizing the threat, when the threat is 6 inches tall and keeps trying to feed me what I think might be regurgitated food? Stand by, Corporal. The comm crackled with overlapping voices. She caught fragments. Unprecedented situation, diplomatic nightmare, and someone shouting something about insurance premiums. Finally, a new voice came through. Crisp. Military. The kind of voice that had probably never dealt with anything more complicated than a weapons malfunction. Marine, this is Colonel Harrison, Xenological Combat Division. I need you to assess the tactical situation. Well, sir, I'm currently being used as a climbing frame by what I can only describe as baby dragons, and one of them just figured out how to open my medical kit. Other than that, everything's peachy. Marine, I need you to focus. Are these creatures displaying hostile behavior? Jensen watched as one of the babies knocked over her water bottle and then tried to help by licking up the spill. Another was systematically shredding her field manual, but seemed to be enjoying the paper more than anything else. Sir, the most hostile thing they've done is steal my lunch rations. And honestly, they're welcome to them. That's not what I'm hearing from the scanner reports, Marine. We're detecting elevated stress pheromones and defensive posturing. Jensen paused. Sir, are you talking about me or them? Because I'm definitely stressed, and I'm pretty sure my posture is defensive at this point. Before the colonel could respond, her proximity sensors started screaming. Control, I've got movement outside the station. Multiple contacts, approaching fast. How many, Marine? Jensen checked her scanner. The numbers made her stomach drop. Sir? You might want to sit down for this. Report, Marine. I count approximately 50 contacts, moving in formation. And judging by the size signatures, these aren't babies. The first blast hit the station's outer hull, and the emergency lighting flickered. The baby aliens immediately stopped their playful exploring and huddled closer to Jensen, making soft distress sounds that tugged at something she didn't know she had. They're scared, she said, surprised by the protective edge in her own voice. Marine, you need to prepare for combat engagement. Sir, with respect, I've got 6 terrified alien babies clinging to me like I'm their last hope. I'm not exactly in prime fighting condition here. Another blast. Closer this time. Through the damaged viewports, Jensen could see shapes moving in the darkness outside. Large shapes, with very big weapons. Control, I think we have a communication problem. How so, Marine? Well, either these guys are really committed to making sure there are no survivors, or they have no idea their kids are in here. The comm crackled with the Universal Translator's synthetic voice. Surrender the stolen progeny. Return what you have taken. Jensen blinked. Stolen progeny? I didn't steal anybody. They adopted me. Marine, respond with standard non-aggression protocols. Which are? Tell them you come in peace and mean no harm to their young. Jensen keyed her external comm. Attention Zephyrian forces. This is Corporal Jensen, Human Marine Corps. I come in peace and mean no harm to your young. The translator rendered this into a series of growls and clicks that even to Jensen's untrained ear sounded distinctly wrong. The response was immediate. A plasma blast that took out the station's main power coupling. Control. I think the translator might need a software update. Why's that, Marine? Because I just told them I come in peace, and their response was to shoot out our power grid. Colonel Harrison's voice cut through the static. Marine, I need you to establish a defensive position and prepare to hold until reinforcements arrive. Sir, how exactly am I supposed to establish a defensive position when I'm carrying 6 baby aliens who think I'm their mother? You're a Marine, Corporal. Figure it out. Jensen looked around the destroyed research station. Limited cover. No backup power. And outside, 50 very angry aliens who apparently thought she was some kind of child thief. Right, she muttered. Because this day wasn't complicated enough already. Another blast shook the station. One of the babies made a particularly pitiful whimpering sound and burrowed deeper into Jensen's tactical vest. That's when it hit her. Control, I need you to run a translation check on that distress beacon. Marine, this isn't the time for... Just do it, sir, please. A pause. Then, Marine, the beacon is broadcasting a standard code red emergency signal. In what language? Standard Galactic Common. But there's an underlying carrier wave in... Oh. Oh, what, sir? Marine, the underlying signal isn't a distress beacon. It's a nursery alarm. Jensen felt something cold settle in her stomach. Come again? The research station's emergency beacon was triggered, but the primary signal we've been receiving is a Zephyrian child safety alert. It's been broadcasting, missing young, immediate assistance required for the past 6 hours. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Control, Jensen said slowly. I don't think those 4 dead Zephyrians were attacking the station. What do you mean, Marine? I think they were trying to rescue their kids. Silence on the comm. Outside, the plasma fire had stopped, replaced by something that sounded suspiciously like very large creatures calling out in distress. Control. I need a better translation matrix, and I need it now. Why, Marine? Because I think those aren't war cries out there. Jensen listened to the alien voices echoing through the damaged station walls. I think those are parents looking for their children. The Universal Translator flickered to life with a new voice pattern. Where are they? Small ones answer. Mother comes. Jensen looked down at the 6 tiny creatures pressed against her, then out at the shapes moving in the darkness beyond the station's broken walls. Control, she said quietly. I think we might have misunderstood this entire situation. How so, Marine? I don't think I'm holding prisoners. She gently stroked the head of the baby alien purring against her neck. I think I'm holding refugees. Marine, you need to clarify. Sir, what if the research station wasn't attacked by hostile aliens? Jensen's voice grew steadier as the pieces fell into place. What if it was attacked by something else, and these Zephyrian soldiers died trying to protect a nursery? The comm went dead silent. Outside, a new voice echoed through the darkness. Deeper, more desperate, and even without the translator, Jensen could hear the unmistakable sound of a parent calling for lost children. Control, she said. I think I need to go outside. Absolutely not, Marine. You're staying put until... Sir, Jensen interrupted. With respect, I think that's a mother out there, and she's looking for her babies. Jensen had exactly 30 seconds to reconsider her life choices before the universe decided to make them for her. The first sign of trouble was the way the baby aliens suddenly went silent. All 6 of them stopped their contented purring and chirping, their tiny heads tilting upward with an alertness that made Jensen's combat instincts prickle. The second sign was the way her proximity sensors started screaming like they'd just detected the apocalypse. Control, she said, trying to keep her voice steady as one of the babies crawled higher up her chest to peer over her shoulder. Please tell me that's our backup dropping out of hyperspace. Negative, Marine. Our reinforcements aren't due for another 40 minutes. Through the damaged viewport, Jensen watched as space above the research station suddenly filled with ships. Big ships. Ships with the kind of firepower that could turn a small moon into asteroid confetti. Control. How many ships are we talking about here? A pause that lasted too long. Marine. We're reading approximately 300 vessels. 300? Jensen's voice cracked. What are they? Having a family reunion up there? Marine. Those are Zephyrian Empire battlecruisers, and they're powering weapons. One of the baby aliens on her shoulder made a soft trilling sound that somehow managed to convey both recognition and excitement. It started bouncing, tiny claws clicking against her armor plating. Oh, great, Jensen muttered. Now they're happy. That's when the shooting started. Not from the ships above. That would have been too simple. The plasma fire erupted from the Zephyrian ground forces who had been calling for their young just moments before. Apparently, the arrival of their battle fleet had shifted the situation from desperate search and rescue to time to turn this research station into a crater. Control, I'm taking heavy fire. Marine, get to cover and prepare for... Jensen's comm exploded in static as a plasma bolt vaporized the communications array. The baby aliens immediately started making distressed sounds, huddling closer to her as the station shook under the bombardment. Okay, she said to herself, diving behind an overturned desk while trying not to squash the tiny creatures clinging to her. This is fine. Everything is fine. I'm just caught between a heavily armed alien army and their own children. Totally normal Tuesday. The baby on her shoulder chose that moment to make a sound that was somewhere between a purr and a roar, tiny, but unmistakably aggressive. The others joined in, creating a miniature chorus that would have been adorable if Jensen wasn't currently being shot at by what appeared to be their entire extended family. Control, if anyone can hear this, I need immediate backup. She popped up from cover long enough to return fire, trying to aim for the ground near the advancing Zephyrian soldiers rather than at them directly. Hard to explain shooting someone's relatives while babysitting their children. That's when she made the mistake of trying to explain the situation. Attention Zephyrian forces, she shouted into her helmet's external speakers, hoping the Universal Translator was working better than before. I have your young! I'm trying to protect them! The translator rendered this into the same series of growls and clicks from before, and the response was immediate. Doubled plasma fire and what sounded like very angry roaring. Okay, that didn't work, Jensen said, ducking as another blast took out the wall above her head. Maybe try a different approach. She tried again. I was protecting them from whatever attacked this station. More angry roaring. More plasma fire. One of the babies crawled up to her helmet and made a series of soft chirping sounds directly into her comm pickup. Jensen had no idea what it was saying, but the effect on the Zephyrian forces was immediate, and not in a good way. The plasma fire intensified to the point where Jensen was pretty sure they were trying to melt the entire station. What did you just tell them? She asked the baby, who looked up at her with large, innocent eyes. That's when her tactical display lit up with new contacts. Human ships, dropping out of hyperspace at combat speed. Finally, she breathed. Her relief lasted exactly 12 seconds. The first human ship to decloak immediately opened fire on the Zephyrian fleet. The Zephyrians returned fire. Within moments, the space above the research station had turned into the galaxy's most expensive fireworks display. This is getting worse, Jensen said to the babies, who seemed to be following the space battle with great interest. This is definitely getting worse. Her comm crackled back to life with a new voice. Crisp, diplomatic, and absolutely furious. This is Ambassador Drax, Galactic Council Peace Division, aboard the diplomatic vessel Harmony. Will someone please explain to me why I'm watching humans and Zephyrians trying to murder each other over a research station? Ambassador! Jensen shouted over the sound of plasma fire. This is Corporal Jensen, ground level. I can explain. Marine, you have 30 seconds before this becomes a full-scale war. Sir, the Zephyrians aren't attacking the station. They're trying to rescue their young. What young? Jensen looked down at the 6 tiny creatures pressed against her. One of them had fallen asleep despite the chaos. Another was trying to eat her helmet strap. Sir, I'm currently babysitting 6 alien children, and their parents are really upset about it. Marine, did you say babysitting? Affirmative, sir. The research station was attacked by someone else. The Zephyrian soldiers died trying to protect these kids. A plasma bolt vaporized the cover next to her head. Jensen grabbed the sleeping baby and rolled to a new position, the other 5 following like a tiny scaled parade. Ambassador, the Universal Translator is malfunctioning. Every time I try to explain that I'm protecting the children, it sounds like I'm threatening them. Marine, are you telling me this entire incident is a translation error? Sir, I'm telling you that... Jensen paused as one of the babies started making urgent, chittering sounds. Wait a minute. The baby was pointing one tiny claw toward the station's rear exit. All 6 of them were now alert, looking in the same direction. Ambassador, I think someone's coming. Who? That's when the rear wall of the research station exploded inward. A massive Zephyrian female charged through the breach, easily twice the size of the soldiers Jensen had seen before. Her scales were darker, her claws longer, and her eyes were fixed on the tiny creatures clustered around Jensen with an intensity that made every predator instinct in Jensen's brain start screaming. The babies immediately started making excited chirping sounds and trying to crawl toward the newcomer. Oh, Jensen said weakly. That's Mom. The massive Zephyrian took one look at Jensen surrounded by the young, opened her mouth to reveal teeth that belonged in a nightmare, and let out a roar that shook the entire station. Ambassador, Jensen said, backing slowly away while the babies tried to squirm out of her arms toward their mother. I think I need that diplomatic immunity thing. Marine, do not engage! Repeat, do not engage! Sir, I'm trying very hard not to engage, but she's between me and the exit, and she looks like she could bench press a tank. The Zephyrian mother advanced, still roaring, claws extended. But then one of the babies managed to wriggle free from Jensen's grip and scampered across the floor toward her, chittering happily. The massive alien immediately stopped roaring and scooped up the tiny creature, cradling it against her chest with surprising gentleness. The baby nuzzled against her and made contented purring sounds. Then the mother looked at Jensen. Really looked at her. The other 5 babies were still clinging to Jensen, showing no fear, making the same contented sounds they'd been making all along. Jensen held very, very still. The Zephyrian mother tilted her head, studying Jensen with intelligent eyes. Then she made a sound, not a roar, but something softer, almost questioning. Jensen said carefully. Ambassador? I think she's trying to talk to me. Marine, whatever you do, don't make any sudden movements. One of the babies in Jensen's arms started making urgent chittering sounds and pointing at its mother. The others joined in, creating a tiny chorus that seemed to be trying to communicate something. The mother listened, then looked at Jensen again. This time, when she opened her mouth, it wasn't a roar. She spoke, in careful, halting Galactic common. You protect small ones? Jensen blinked. You speak common? Little. Learn for trade talks. The massive alien's voice was deep, careful. You not hurt babies? No, I would never hurt them. They were scared, hiding. I was trying to keep them safe. The mother studied Jensen for a long moment. Then she looked at the babies still clinging to the human Marine, all of them purring and showing no signs of distress. They trust you, she said slowly. Yeah, Jensen said, gently stroking one tiny head. I guess they do. That's when the space battle above them reached a crescendo, and Ambassador Drax's voice crackled through the calm with barely controlled panic. Marine, I need you to resolve this situation immediately. We have 2 battle fleets about to turn each other into space debris, and the only thing stopping them is diplomatic immunity. Jensen looked at the massive Zephyrian mother, then at the babies in her arms. What do you say we call this whole thing a misunderstanding? She asked. The mother considered this. Misunderstanding. Yes. But first, she made a series of complex gestures toward her chest. I'm sorry. I don't understand. The mother pointed at one of the babies in Jensen's arms, then made the gesture again. One of the babies immediately started wiggling and making urgent sounds. Oh, Jensen said, understanding dawning. Oh, you want me to… She looked down at the baby, which was definitely making the kind of sounds that indicated it needed something. The kind of something that probably required burping. Ambassador, Jensen said into her comm, this might take a minute. Marine, what's your status? Jensen looked at the massive alien mother waiting patiently for her to burp her baby, while outside the battle fleet held fire and waited for a diplomatic resolution. Sir, I'm handling the negotiations. The ceasefire happened by accident. Jensen was in the middle of demonstrating proper baby burping technique to a Zephyrian mother who could probably arm wrestle a battle cruiser, when one of the babies decided it had had enough of being held and made a break for freedom. The tiny creature, no bigger than a kitten, but with wings that actually worked, launched itself out of Jensen's arms and flew directly toward the hole in the station wall where a squad of Zephyrian soldiers was taking cover. Oh no, Jensen said. Come back here, you little… The baby alien landed squarely on the helmet of the largest Zephyrian soldier, who immediately went cross-eyed, trying to look at it. The tiny creature made happy chirping sounds and tried to burrow into the soldier's face armor. The soldier, who had been in the middle of aiming a plasma rifle at Jensen, slowly lowered his weapon. He said in halting Galactic common. Little one is… stuck? His squad mates immediately abandoned their firing positions to help extract the baby from their commander's helmet. Within seconds, the entire squad was cooing over the tiny creature like it was the most precious thing in the universe. Which, Jensen realized, to them, it probably was. Ambassador, she said into her comm, watching as more Zephyrian soldiers cautiously emerged from cover to get a better look at the baby. I think we're making progress. Define progress, Marine. Well, nobody's shooting at me anymore, and I'm pretty sure that squad leader just asked if the baby is hungry. Through the station's damaged viewports, Jensen could see the space battle grinding to a halt as ship commanders on both sides tried to figure out why the ground forces had suddenly stopped fighting to hold an impromptu baby shower. The Zephyrian mother, who had introduced herself as Commander Vex using a combination of growls and gestures that Jensen was pretty sure were her actual name, watched the proceedings with what might have been amusement. Your soldiers, she said to Jensen. They like small ones too? Our soldiers? Ma'am, I think you've got us confused with… Jensen's words were cut off by the arrival of the human reinforcement squad, who came charging through the main entrance with weapons raised and tactical gear gleaming, ready to extract their Marine from what command had described as a hostage situation with extreme prejudice potential. They made it exactly 3 steps before stopping dead. The first thing they saw was Jensen, standing calmly next to an alien who looked like she could bench press a small building. The second thing they saw was Jensen holding what appeared to be a baby dragon while it made contented purring sounds. The third thing they saw was their teammate gently extracting another baby dragon from a Zephyrian soldier's weapon holster, where it had apparently decided to take a nap. Corporal, said Squad Leader Williams, lowering his rifle slowly. What exactly is the tactical situation here? Well, sir, I'm currently engaged in joint childcare operations with the Zephyrian Empire. Come. Again? Jensen gestured around the station, where human and Zephyrian soldiers were now working together to retrieve baby aliens from various hiding spots and pieces of equipment. Sir, it turns out this whole thing was a misunderstanding. The Zephyrians weren't attacking the station. They were trying to rescue their kids from whatever did attack it. And what did attack it? Commander Vex made a sound that the Universal Translator rendered as something unprintable, followed by pirates, slavers. Take young ones to sell. We track them here, but… She gestured at the destroyed station. Too late, Jensen finished. But the babies were hidden, and they survived. Williams looked around the station at the impromptu daycare center that had erupted around them. One of his soldiers was showing a Zephyrian how to properly support a baby's head. Another was taking pictures with his helmet cam while a tiny alien tried to eat his identification tags. Marine, Williams said slowly, are you telling me we nearly started an interstellar war over a daycare mishap? That's affirmative, sir. The comm crackled with Ambassador Drax's voice, now considerably calmer but edged with the kind of exhaustion that came from preventing galactic incidents. All units, this is Ambassador Drax. I'm receiving reports that the situation on the ground has stabilized. Affirmative, Ambassador, Williams reported. We have joint operations in progress. Joint operations? Jensen looked around at the scene unfolding in the research station. Human soldiers were teaching Zephyrian warriors how to change alien diapers. Zephyrian soldiers were showing humans how to hold the babies so their tiny claws didn't accidentally shred the fabric of their uniforms. Commander Vex was patiently explaining to a human medic that the purring sound meant the babies were happy, not preparing to attack. Sir, Jensen said into the comm, I think we're going to need some new protocols. 3 hours later, the emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in the organization's history. Ambassador Drax stood at the podium, looking like someone who had aged several years in a single day. Behind him, a massive view screen showed the research station, where human and Zephyrian soldiers were working together to set up a temporary nursery for the rescued babies. The motion before the Council, Drax said wearily, is to establish new first contact protocols regarding distress signals. And what would these protocols entail? Asked the Altarian representative, who was clearly trying not to smile. Before responding to any distress beacon, all vessels must first determine whether the emergency is military, medical, or… Drax paused. Childcare related. Childcare related? The Centauri delegate looked confused. Apparently, Drax continued, the phrase, hostile unknown species, can be easily confused with lost children in need of assistance if your Universal Translator hasn't been updated in the last 6 months. On the view screen, Jensen could be seen showing a group of Zephyrian soldiers how to play peekaboo with the alien babies. The massive warriors were taking notes. Furthermore, Drax said, all military personnel will now be required to complete basic interspecies childcare certification before deployment to potential first contact situations. Is that really necessary? Asked the Vegan representative. The view screen switched to another angle, showing Commander Vex carefully burping one of her babies while a human Marine held her plasma rifle for her. The baby made a small hiccuping sound and breathed a tiny puff of what was definitely acid smoke. Yes, Drax said firmly. Yes, it is. The human representative raised her hand. What about the Zephyrian Empire's response to this incident? Drax looked at his notes. Commander Vex has formally requested that Corporal Jensen be awarded honorary citizenship in the Zephyrian Empire, and given the title of Guardian of the Small Ones. She has also asked if Jensen would be willing to set up a cultural exchange program. Cultural exchange? Apparently, Zephyrian military doctrine doesn't include provisions for warriors who want to learn advanced baby care techniques from other species. Commander Vex feels this is a significant oversight in their training programs. On the screen, Jensen was now sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by 6 baby aliens and at least 12 heavily armed soldiers from 2 different species, all of whom were watching intently as she demonstrated the proper way to tie tiny booties on clawed feet. The motion passes, said the council president, shaking his head in bemused disbelief. From now on, all first contact situations require confirmation of whether we're dealing with a military crisis or a daycare emergency. Drax closed his folder and looked up at the assembly. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored delegates, I give you the most expensive babysitting incident in galactic history. The session ended with the sound of 6 tiny alien voices chirping contentedly through the view screen speakers, while 2 battle fleets orbited overhead, their crews taking turns volunteering for nursery duty. And in her official report, filed later that day, Corporal Jensen wrote, Mission accomplished. No casualties. Recommend immediate revision of combat protocols to include basic childcare training. Also recommend hazard pay for anyone assigned to first contact duties. These babies are adorable, but they definitely breathe acid. The report was classified as absurd but accurate, and became required reading at the Galactic Military Academy. Nobody ever lived it down.